Guys and gals, I've been waiting to do this movie ever since this series started. There are few films as influential on the horror world than this wonderful venture from Wes Craven. The killer at the lead has haunted many a dream, including my own, and provided more iconic moments than I even care to count. So join us as we talk about the man of your dreams, as we cover A Nightmare on Elm Street on today's Real Slashers.
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
The story of A Nightmare on Elm Street is one of my favorites in all of cinema. There are few journeys in film that connect deeper than Nancy Thompson's struggle to find out what's happening to her and her friends, all while the ticking time bomb of eventual sleep becomes the death of her. The opening scene of Freddy building his trademark glove is a masterclass in how to set up a terrifying villain. We're shown what he kills with, and these little noises emanate from him that just signal what bad news he is. Add to that the awkward framing as the credits roll, and it just further sets up the motif that Craven plays with constantly throughout the film. Is this a dream, or is this real life? And sure, there are clues that give you an indication, so it's never some huge mystery, but it makes it so the film can seamlessly transition from ordinary to the extraordinary, without much setup needing to happen. As Tina walks through this boiler room, we finally get our first glimpse at Freddy, who startles Tina awake. The cuts along her nightgown tell us all we need to know. Whatever happens in your dream happens in reality. This all comes in the opening minutes of this film, and it sets up everything. What follows is a journey unlike any other, because we watch Tina and her eventual murder by Freddy. Tina's friend Nancy is our actual lead, and she's got a pretty big shell to break out of. Then her own house. But we'll get into that later. This misdirect of starting out with Tina and then switching over to Nancy feels very Marion Crane and Psycho, and leaves you with an uneasy feeling for the rest of the movie. We've already lost one lead. What's to prevent Freddy from killing Nancy out of nowhere and then suddenly just switch to Glenn's perspective? That's Johnny Depp, by the way. The switcheroo sets up the audience expectation that anything can happen, and that keeps you on the edge of your seat for the rest of the movie. Nancy watches as her friends die around her, and she's left to figure out the mystery before Krueger kills her too. Yeah, sure, I'm simplifying it a ton, but you've all seen Elm Street, and I don't want to walk you through this step by step. Everyone has seen this movie, and if you haven't, shame on you. Also, we're no longer friends. So really, I just want to focus on some of the more interesting aspects of the plot. The common theme present throughout Elm Street is the sins of the parent being felt by their innocent children. Nancy and her friends don't deserve any of this. I mean, sure, there's probably not anyone that deserves this, but Freddy should probably at least focus on the actual people that hurt him rather than their kids. Really shows how fucked in the head he is. Not that I expected sanity from a guy who murders children, but still. Hell, once Nancy's mom even somewhat believes her, she does something crazy and puts gates and locks all over the doors and windows of the house. Talk about overcompensating for guilt. Mother! And that's not even getting into her alcoholism. This lady hides vodka bottles, and she's a single mother. Oh, and just for a little fun fact, you can see Evil Dead playing on Nancy's TV at one point in the movie. And this was actually a pretty cool direct response to Sam Raimi, who also included a Hills Have Eyes poster in his film. Gotta love when films do these little winks to each other. The ending is brilliant, but it certainly hasn't aged well. Unless Mrs. Thompson has the ability to turn herself into a plastic blow-up doll, because then I'll shut my mouth. But as is, it really takes you out of the moment. Almost makes you wish they had just gone with Craven's original ending, where Nancy is reunited with her friends and they drive off for their school day. No Freddy appearance at all. But is this a dream? Is Nancy dead and just back with her friends in the afterlife? It's a much more thought-provoking ending, but also puts more of a kibosh on future sequels. At least, we didn't get what Bob Shea originally wanted, with Freddy literally driving the car. Because, no. Just no.
It's an evil.
There are few killers who have haunted more dreams than Freddy Krueger. And I mean, I suppose that's a given, but the Dream Demon's power of attacking you while you're asleep is something that can really haunt you to your core. Unlike Camp Crystal Lake or even Haddonfield, Illinois, Freddy's location isn't exactly something you can avoid. Everyone must sleep, therefore everyone must enter his domain eventually. As I already touched on a little, Krueger gets one of the greatest character introductions ever. How Craven plays with what you see versus what you don't really allows the imagination to run wild when it comes to Fred. Krueger's trademark red and green sweater was chosen by Craven due to the psychological effect the colors have on the psyche when they're paired together. It's something viewers wouldn't outright notice, but instead be overcome with uneasiness just at the sight of him. That's just brilliant. Even the name, Fred Krueger, it just sounds so much like a villain. Craven took this from his own childhood because his childhood bully was actually named Fred Krueger. His appearance comes from a homeless man that terrified Craven when he was younger. So the fact that Krueger has these real-life origins to pull from, it almost makes him feel a little more layered. Then there's Robert Englund, who completely embodies the role of Freddy Krueger, so spectacularly that he became a pop culture phenomenon. Sure, his appearance here is much more subdued than what he turns into in the sequels, but it leaves an even bigger impact. While a slew of imitators have come since, there was no one like him at the time. He toyed with his victims using their own nightmares and psychologically broke them down before finally dispatching of them. Freddy takes mental warfare up to 11. Now, every single one of Freddy's kills here are so damn memorable. The ceiling crawl, the bed geyser, even Nancy's mom floating on the bed. All these moments will remain with you well after the credits roll, because Craven sets the stage perfectly to help separate what Krueger provides that's so different from his colleagues Michael and Jason, and that's creative kills. They are bound by reality, but Freddy can do whatever his imagination can come up with, and apparently he really has a thing for goats.
Miss Nude America's gonna be on tonight.
Well, how can you hear what she's going to say?
Who cares what she says?
I'm sure that most people who grew up on this series also had some kind of crush on Nancy Thompson. She is the epitome of strength and ingenuity, and truly takes on an impossible situation with pure inner strength. And I mean, just look at her. She's beautiful. Since she's our final girl, we can't possibly see any nudity from her. But there is something during the iconic bath scene that will make you go, wait, was I supposed to see that? But don't worry, purists, that's a body double, not Langenkamp. There's also Tina, played by Amanda Weiss, who is really cute, but her decision making leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, what on earth does she see in Rod? After her initial nightmare, we were able to see Tina's mom isn't exactly the best example of how a strong, independent woman should be, but it still makes you want to scream at your TV when you see Rob being a scumbag. But he's clearly good at something.
Morality sucks.
Johnny Depp appears in his first film role as Glenn, Nancy's boyfriend. I've lost count of the number of times I've heard some girl swoon over Depp in this film. He's what you would think of when you hear boy next door type. Pretty much the entire opposite is Rob, who seems to constantly have a layer of sweat going. He almost looks glazed, for God's sake.
Hey, up yours with a twirling lawnmower.
Okay, fine, you'll always be a legend because you gave us that insult.
Oh, he scraped his fingernails along things. Actually, they were more like finger knives or something he'd made himself.
Nancy, you dreamed about the same creep I did.
There are few moments as iconic in the world of horror than Tina's death in this film. Sure, you could go for Glenn's death just for the pure gross out factor, but what happens here is unparalleled. At this point in the movie, we've spent most of our time with Tina. Sure, Nancy and Glenn have been introduced, but we start with Tina, and it really feels like she's the person that we're going to be spending the rest of the movie with. After getting hot and heavy in the bedroom, Tina and Rod sleep soundly, until someone starts throwing rocks at the window. Tina investigates the noise, but Rod doesn't show any interest whatsoever, even when she tries waking him up. And you may just be screaming at Tina to realize she's in a dream, but how many times have you not realized you were in a dream, no matter how insane it's gotten? Because I've done that plenty. Lured outside, Tina makes her way out to the alleyway. That's when we're introduced to the disturbing imagery of Krueger's outstretched arms. Again, it's the imagery that says so much. No matter where you try to run, Freddy will catch you. And catch her he does. But not before playing some sadistic games first. Freddy takes some kind of sick joy in this, as if the more he toys with his victims, the sweeter the kill will be. When we're finally thrown back to the real world, we get to see Tina writhing in agony as Rod looks on, not knowing what's happening. This is when the truly unbelievable happens, and we're treated to this brilliant camera effect of Tina crawling up on the ceiling, while Rod just stares helplessly from the floor. By the time Freddy makes his final strike, Tina's body slumps and falls to the bed. The splattering sound it makes while Rod gets splashed with blood really nails in the point that Tina is not making it out of this one. This is about as final as you can get. It also shows the chaos that will follow and how Krueger's greatest strength is that no one will believe those he terrorizes. They're entirely on their own. Krueger, and he'll always be the man of your dreams.
My journey ends with Freddy's Revenge. I've defended Freddy's Dead for its overtly 90s cartoon take. And just last month I defended The Dream Child for its dark tone mixed with a trippy visual style, paired with a quippy MTV Freddy. The one film that truly feels out of place in this entire series. The first film became a massive hit and basically made a new line, as it eventually became known as the house that Freddy built. Surprise to everyone that a child-loving burn victim with a dark wit ended up being one of the biggest horror villains of all time, with a big thanks to Robert Englund's brilliant performance. Wes Craven had no intention to make Nightmare on Elm Street a franchise, and even hated the tacked-on
Surprise, motherfucker!
ending. He wanted to actually end on a happy note. This entry, part 2, was always in my rotation as a kid. I always felt it was a bit weird. I liked it, I did. Something about it, I couldn't put my finger on it. No, that's not it. And in my early 20s, it finally hit me. Freddy's Revenge is a soft reboot. Holy shit! In the vein of Highlander 2 Renegade Edition. Now, hold on, stay with me, which that will be discussed in the series eventually. No. Freddy's Revenge was meant to be the reset and lead the series going forward. David Chaskin writes a film with the house as a returning character. Jesse finds a diary from a former final girl, Nancy. We are explained everything we need to know as if there wasn't a previous film. The house is returning character, the diary exists, but all of this, is framed as it's the first time. Freddy's back. How? Who f***ing knows? But maybe he isn't back. Maybe this is his first time. This name keeps coming up over and over again. Freddy Krueger. Who is he? Well, a Meryl Streep-looking Lisa Weber recounts his horde past and his love for a good boiler room. Only this time it's in sort of an industrial plant where RoboCop is dismantled. They need to find this guy and stop him, but you know what? This man doesn't exist.
There's no Pepe Sylvia. The man does not exist, okay? So I decided, oh shit, buddy, I gotta dig a little deeper. There's no Pepe Sylvia, you gotta be kidding me! I got boxes full of Pepe!
Jesse is out of his goddamn mind. Well, except for Krueger does exist, and uses him Candyman style to do his bidding. This whole damn movie is trying to restart the series with his own brand new rules. It's a bizarre idea and such a weird step to take. Does it work? No. Not a fucking chance, but it is a fascinating watch as a non-canon entry that stands on its own, being pretty good. This entry, it's very interesting, it's different. Once you frame it as a strange sort of restart, I think you could delve into this mid-80s possession flick with a hat-wearing child murderer and dig it on its own merits. Even Robert Englund's performance is different. I mean, this may be his closest tonally to the OG, but here he isn't a dream demon, he's something else. As I've mentioned before, this may be my favorite look. Special effects whiz Kevin Yeager took over and added his own take on the Krueger look. He made him creepier, in my opinion. Sunken in eyes, more of a pronounced brow bone, more of a witch's nose, and the cherry in the Manhattan. His orange-red eyes. I love how he looks here. And we're still early enough in the series where they keep his voice super low.
I've got the brain.
Even how Krueger kills is against the grain. Using Jesse via an avatar in the real world. I mean, think about it. There isn't one dream kill in part 2, right? Weird. The coach, slashed from the back, after some warm-up ass smacks. Ron, stabbed through the gut, and a bunch of teens at the pool party massacre. Freddy's fundamental characteristic has changed. Now he's a spirit who needs a new body, and at times I would say he acts less strategic and surgical. Now he's more brass and desperate. It's a different take on a character played by the same actor. What a wild time to see Freddy not haunt the dreams of his victims. This almost seems like what Adam Marcus tried to do with the shit show known as Jason Goes to Hell. Only Jack Shoulder at least understood the concept of having the killer in the movie from time to time. I mean, hey, Krueger isn't in this much. I actually think it's around 13 minutes. And since it's about possessing a different body, Krueger is naturally put on the back burner. The elephant in the room, and the thing part 2 will be known for in the history books, is the gay subtext. Or is it subtext when it's literally a part of the movie? And once you notice it, you can't go back. Now, as a kid, it went right over my head. I mean, look at producer Robert Shea. Yeah, now I can see it. Back then, he's just a cool guy in leather. The coach's death scene. Yeah, a lot of balls. And then at the end, they actually just called out.
Something is trying to get inside my body.
Yeah, and she's female and she's waiting for you in the cabana. And you want to sleep with me.
Chaskin tried to play it cool a while back with this bad fucking take.
You didn't write the movie as a homoerotic movie. You wrote it as a homophobic movie. The type of movie that they should show at a conversion camp.
Dude.
That the love of a good woman can make any gay man straight.
But when the time was convenient, finally admitted what we had suspected for so long. I've said it before, but this series isn't known for its acting. But it sucks that Mark Patton took the heat for something he had no say in, regardless of his sexual orientation. And it brings into question how Shoulder, Mr. Magooed himself through production without catching on once. Now, all of this has been said, and better than I could ever do. And though it defines this movie, I think credit should go toward its fascinating switch into something that, was a bit different. And honestly, please, there is something I love about catalog watching. Having every entry at your fingertips. Being able to judge and explore free from bias or influence. It's this pure viewing experience through the age of the video store, where my admiration for Freddy's Revenge was born. It is a true black sheep, unwelcomed and unlike anything else. And Patton seems like a sweet dude, and I hope the asshole fans that gave him such a hard time have finally tapered off, and my love and defense will always land with any flick that dares to be unusual. Like the Thin White Duke said it best, don't bend, stay straight.
Intended for it to be the end of the series for good. This was actually around the same time that John Saxon had came up with the idea of a group of teens taking on Krueger. The logic behind it was that Freddy has just grown stronger in the years since, taking in soul after soul, so an individual would just no longer be powerful enough to take him on. There was a strong link with suicide, which the producers felt was a bit too taboo for the time, though some of this remained in the actual film. Eventually, Frank Darabont and Chuck Russell took over scripting duties and tailored the film into a more lighthearted and fun time, despite some of its darker elements. The concept of a man hunting down teens in their dreams is already such a cool idea that it's hard to imagine pushing it to a whole nother level. But Dream Warriors does exactly that. Like most Elm Street films, we open on a nightmare. Kristen Parker is putting together a little arts and crafts project of old 1428 Elm. This opening is so simple yet tells us so much. We already know that Kristen has clearly been getting terrorized by Freddy. They pull the whole "you're actually still in a dream even though you're awake" shtick, and it's beautifully done. Because of this suicide attempt, Kristen is sent by her mother to the Weston Hills Psychiatric Hospital. But little does Kristen know that the rest of the kids in her unit have also been seeing the same burned and disfigured man. These teens include Joey, a mute boy who's a bit of a horn dog.
Why, thank you.
Kincaid, a tough guy from the streets.
Well, let me see you come get a piece of me! Kruger! Pussy!
Jennifer, a delusional actress who puts cigarettes out on her arms.
As soon as I get out of here, I'm going to Los Angeles to be an actress.
Will, a wheelchair-bound nerd.
I am the Wizard Master.
Taryn, a recovering drug addict.
In my dreams, I'm beautiful and bad.
And Philip, a habitual sleepwalker.
The fact that we all dreamt about this guy before we ever met doesn't seem to impress anybody.
With all of these kids having such bad nightmares, the hospital brings in a dream expert. And look who it is, it's Nancy Thompson. She's made it her life mission to help weary sleepers and is on a drug called Hypnosil, which suppresses her nightmares. Unfortunately for Nancy, Kristen has the ability to bring people into her own dreams. And she does so with Nancy, bringing her face to face with Freddy for the first time since the events of the original. It's an incredible way to bring her back into the fold. And the look on Freddy's face when he realizes who it is just too good. What precedes is Freddy slowly killing the Dream Warriors one by one until they band together to meet him on his own territory and take him out. You could argue that not all of the warriors get their time to shine, but there's a lot of them and we only have so much runtime. By the time they're able to make it to Freddy's dream lair, only Kincaid, Kristen, Nancy, and Joey remain. Oh, and we haven't even gotten into Craig Wasson's Neil Gordon character. He's a bit of a love interest for Nancy and is one of the doctors at Weston Hills. He fully believes Nancy when it comes to Kruger and goes on a mission with Nancy's father Don to bury Freddy's bones and get rid of him forever. In fact, despite both Mr. Thompson and Nancy being killed for their efforts, it's actually Dr. Gordon that ends up defeating Freddy, which, given how important the Dream Warriors are to the plot, is really my only complaint. I would have preferred to have seen them take Freddy out. But oh well, Freddy has been defeated and everyone can finally sleep again. For now at least. We already covered this one in our video on the first Nightmare on Elm Street, but the Freddy Krueger character has changed a little bit since then. In the second sequel, Freddy is a little more of a quipster.
It's back in the saddle again.
He's actually more well lit as well, so we really get an up close and personal view of his burn scars. Otherwise, he's still the same fedora and red and green sweater wearing psychopath who takes way too much pleasure in killing the teens of Elm Street. Though I will say, he's getting more and more creative, really taking what these kids love and twisting it around before he kills them. This is also the movie where we're introduced to Freddy's mother, Amanda Krueger, and get a little more backstory on Freddy himself. See, it's revealed that a young girl was accidentally locked in a room with the most dangerous and criminally insane patients. They raped her hundreds of times. So I guess now you know why they call